Pal sir and Amit sir for this lovely, inspiring session. Now, I would like to call upon Mr. SP Singh, who has come all the way from Switzerland to attend this event and to give a moment to our guest. Mr. SP Singh. So our next session is about to start and the session is Agnipath Scheme, जो अभी आज के लिए सबसे ज़्यादा लाइमलाइट में रहने वाली स्कीम चल रही है. उसके लिए इस सेशन के लिए I would like to call upon Mr. Sushant Singh ji, who is defense expert and who will continue this session.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. It's been a few weeks since you saw scenes on your television screens and on your mobile phones of trains burning, of streets being put on fire, arson, looting, everything that was going on, because a new scheme for recruitment of soldiers in the Indian Armed Forces, the Army, Navy, and the Air Force had been announced by the government of India. You know, those visuals are no longer on our screens, whether it be on television or on our mobile phones, but the crisis or the major change that was brought in by the short-term recruitment scheme continues to harbor us, continues to bother us. This is something which I want to explain to you about, talk to you about, because not many people understand what the scheme is and what it entails and what its consequences are beyond just the name. So first thing, a lot of people have asked me, what is good about this scheme? The best thing about this scheme is its name. The name is the most fantastic thing, and whoever has named it has done a great job. Agnipath, as many of you know, is a poem by Harivansh Rai Bachchan, which also became a movie, was remade as a movie, and that's what the name of the scheme is. Agniveer, I tried to, whatever my knowledge of Hindi and Sanskrit is, I tried to find out what Agniveer means, and I actually could not find out what it means, because Agni and Veer does not go together, even if you do the Sandhi Vishched of the two words. So what exactly is the Agnipath scheme? The Agnipath scheme is a short-term contractual scheme for recruitment of soldiers, where soldiers, young men, would be recruited for a period of 4 years. And they will not be recruited as sepoys or as airmen or as sailors. They would be recruited in an absolutely new rank which has been created that would be called Agniveer. There would be a totally separate pay scale from regular soldiers which has been created for them. The kind of perks and privileges which are available to them are different from regular soldiers. For example, regular soldiers are authorized 90 days of leave. These guys are authorized only 30 days of leave every year. Most importantly, after 4 years, these Agniveers will not be treated as ex-servicemen. They will not have ex-serviceman status. They will not get any canteen facilities, any medical facilities, any pension, any gratuity. Nothing is available to them at all. Then up to 25% of them, and I'm specifying, the rule position is very clear, up to 25%. It could be lesser. Up to 25% of the people who are demobilized as Agniveers could be taken back into the armed forces again. So it is not necessary that 25% of them will be automatically taken back. Up to 25% may be taken back into the armed forces, which they will then again start at zero service. So anybody who has been in government service or understand government service would know that every year that you serve in government, you get an increment for that year. And that year of service is counted towards your pension eventually that builds up. So like, I quit the army at 20 years of service. Every year I was getting an increment that was counted towards my gratuity, towards my pension. Now in case of Agniveer, first 4 years you have served, you have been demobilized. Those first 4 years are not going to be counted for whatever you do next. So you have to serve for another 15 years to earn your pension, and your salary would thus be less, which essentially points to a kind of a financial subterfuge to avoid the costs of having an army or having the armed forces that India has. And this would be the only mode of recruitment into Indian armed forces henceforth. So there would be no more regular recruitment as we have known historically going back to East India Company. At least 250, 275 years. 275 years, yes. That's how long that recruitment process has gone on. That will no longer exist. There will only be recruitment through the Agniveer scheme. And as we know now, this process for last 2 years, there's been no recruitment because there was resentment and resistance from the armed forces against implementing this scheme. And that's why there was no recruitment for last 2 years, even though the official reason that we have heard is it was not due to the pandemic. And eventually the armed forces succumbed and the political leadership has been able to get its way through by having the Agnipath scheme for Agniveers on board. There are 2 other major changes of this exercise which most people have missed out on because of the focus on these young men and the violence they inflicted on the streets. And these 2 changes are that the Indian Army particularly, historically, has been a class-based army. And class not as in Marxist class, but it's a euphemism for subcaste or jati. Like you guys know, there would be a Jat regiment, there would be a Sikh regiment, a Sikh light infantry, a Maratha regiment, a Rajput regiment, a Rajputana rifles. All these regiments get people based on certain caste groups. Like even the President Bodyguard, which is a very famous unit, very old unit, which is supposed to guard the president. That unit's recruitment is only from 3 castes. And people from other castes, I think a Gujar and a Yadav, had challenged it in the Supreme Court. And government had said, no, this is the way we recruit, because this is how cohesion works, this is how combat efficiency works, and we are not going to change it. That has been appended. There will not be class-based recruitment. Even the Gurkhas from Nepal. Many of you might be aware that India, UK, and Nepal have a tripartite agreement through which Gurkha soldiers are allowed to be recruited into the British Army, into the Indian Army, and into the Nepal Army. That would no longer be true. So your Gurkha regiment could now have a soldier from Tamil Nadu, could have a soldier from Haryana, could have, whatever, could have a soldier from Jammu in its midst. It will no longer be a Gurkha soldier. This also appends the tripartite agreement with Nepal, because there are specific conditions in that agreement. The soldiers who would be recruited would be guaranteed a pension. They would be allowed a full term of service. All that is appended if Gurkhas are recruited as soldiers. And this is leading to a lot of turmoil and a lot of angst inside Nepal, because it's a major source of recruitment, major source of employment for young Nepalese men, and also brings a lot of revenue in terms of salaries because they send back money home, also in terms of pensions. I don't know if you are aware that India actually conducts recruitment camps inside Nepal. India has a pension cell inside Nepal to distribute pensions to Gurkha soldiers. That is all going away. There will be no class-based recruitment. The recruitment will be, the Jat regiment can have a Gurkha and a Gurkha regiment can have a Jat, so to speak. The second major change is that his post-1962 war, after what was going in Pakistan, and I don't know how many of you are aware that in the 1960s, 70% of Pakistan army was coming from 8 districts of Pakistan. And those 8 districts were from what is now called Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab. The army was so unbalanced, and this is what leads to the crisis in East Pakistan, where East Pakistan becomes Bangladesh because army is dominated by a certain districts. India was worried about it. 1964, the policies announced. 1967, the policies implemented. And there is a state-wise target for each of these states in India from which number of soldiers can be recruited. This is something called the RMP, or the recruitable male population, which is decided for each state based on the population and 10% of the population and how much that can be recruited. Those targets are not always met, because there are certain units, there are certain states like Punjab from which a lot of people are taken in. But from other states, lesser people are taken in, for example, Gujarat. But even then, those targets, those goals have ensured that India has not had an unbalanced army. And the unbalanced army can not only be in terms of states, because states in India, as you know, have been created on the basis of language. That could mean that there is a linguistic bias, that there could be a religious bias, because some of our states, like Jammu and Kashmir, Nagaland, etc., they are dominated by religious minorities. So these kind of changes are likely to produce an unbalanced army, where your bulk of your army is coming from only a small number of areas, where people speak the same language, people following the same religion, people coming from same geographic areas. And academic research shows that any army which is unbalanced leads to tension in civil-military relations and often ends in civil war. And this is what exactly happened in Pakistan. Pakistan is a salutary example in this case as to why you should not have an unbalanced army which is dominated by any one ethnic group or any one linguistic group. The big effect of this scheme is on the youth of the country. This scheme is inherently exploitative in nature because there is a large amount of unemployment and underemployment. Even, where this is a country where for posts of janitor, and I've got nothing against janitors, PhD students apply for posts of janitor. So any scheme, even if it is for 4 years, it would have a large number of people applying. Even if the salary was cut in half, even that you would have a large number of people applying. And that is something which the government understands. That is why the government has done this. But it has taken away very few high quality jobs that are available in the Indian economic and social landscape. At the lower end of the scale, government jobs are preferred because they are the only high quality jobs with medical facilities, with gratuity, with pension, with other benefits. Somebody who does not become a soldier will most likely be a security guard getting 8,000 rupees a month in a place in Noida. I'm being told I've just got 2 minutes left. I don't think I've spoken for half an hour yet, but that's fine. So what this would mean is that for the youth, the armed forces would no longer be the highest priority. It would probably be one of the lower priorities, and the Central Armed Police Forces, the BSF, the CRPFs, and the CISFs would become higher priorities. What would be its effect on the military, on which a lot of military veterans have spoken about and written about? The effect on the military will be on military's efficiency and its effectiveness, because 4 years, including the training period, is too short a time to produce a well-rounded soldier who can be trusted by his comrades to go into battle or to undertake operations. Also, because eventually you will have a 50% army, which will be of these 4-year short-term recruited soldiers, and 50% would be regular soldiers. That is likely to create a division. Thirdly, if only 25% people are going to be taken from Agniveer into regular thing, there's going to be a lot of fight for who those 25% are going to be. And that is going to create a lot of bad blood, lack of trust, and lack of confidence. And this is an organization, trust me, which works on large amount of trust. When somebody tells you that you go under fire and do this because I'm going to protect you covering fire, you are trusting that soldier. When the other soldier is telling you, there's nothing else. It's just trust. I'm going to give you covering fire, run under this firing right now, and go there. If that trust is broken, armies will find it very, very difficult to operate. And I think that's a big challenge by only making it hyper-competitive by taking only 25% people. This unhealthy competition is unlikely to help. So what was the reason for the government doing it? Government's official reason is that we are doing it because we want to make the army younger. The average age is 28. Over some few years, it will come down to 23 or 24. Now, the army is 28 is not too old for a soldier. It actually is the apt age because you have a certain amount of maturity to undertake things, to undertake operations, to do things. 23 or 24, in any case, even if you are 28 or 30 or 35, the army has something called the battle physical efficiency test and the physical proficiency test, which everyone has to pass. One of the tests is you have to run 5 kilometers with full battle gear, with a weapon, with a rifle, and run in 25 minutes. All of us have passed it, done it all our lives. If you don't pass it, you would be put under some kind of a ban, some kind of this thing. So there is no problem with the physical fitness aspect of men, but I think there's a problem in terms of by trying to bring the age further down, you are getting less mature people who are not attuned to working in this kind of hypertense environment and are unlikely to perform under pressure. So if this is just a charade, just an excuse, then what is the real reason? The real reason is financial. The government of India, as Manveen said in the earlier panel, government of India really does not have the money to support the kind of armed forces that India needs today. So the defense pensions budget in the current budget for the current financial year is already rupees 1.17 lakh crore. Over the last 10 years, the defense pensions have increased by 15.7% every year, while the defense budget has increased by only 9.6% every year. And the crisis has become bigger because the one rank, one pension scheme was brought in by the government in 2015, and a new pay commission, the 7th pay commission, came in. This completely destroyed the budgetary landscape for pensions and salaries, and making it much more difficult for the government to support the armed forces. That's why in 2017, the government went to the 15th Finance Commission and said, tell us what should we do, because we are unable to maintain or manage the finances with respect to defense pensions. The 15th Finance Commission gave certain recommendations that, like you have state governments and other central government employees who have moved to contributory pensions and so on and so forth, that could be done for the armed forces as well. But the government clearly chose not to do it, because this government, particularly the current central government, is a hyper-nationalist government which won the last election in 2019 by talking about Balakot airstrike and how they are supporting the military and how they are being so nice to the military. That's how they brought the OROP. Mr. Modi loves to dress up in military uniform, military gear, and go to various places, and tom his affiliation for the military. That's why those harsh decisions that have not been taken. And more than that, there's an unwillingness to confront the truth about the reasons why this exercise is being undertaken. A whole charade has been created to avoid facing the truth. The truth is that the money is less, we need to pay less, the armed forces that we need more, but the government does not want to say that, oh, we can't pay you more. So this whole charade about youth and other excuses is being created, and which is being fronted by serving military officers, including service chiefs, coming on television screens and giving interviews, rather than the political leadership or the bureaucrats or the ministers who are responsible for undertaking such an exercise. There are two other things about this exercise which need to be understood. One is the timing. Even if a major disruption like this was to be undertaken, should it be undertaken when a border crisis with China is on? The timing raises huge suspicions about the whole thing. You do not want to create a turmoil, you do not want to create a disruption if you want to deal with the Chinese threat very seriously. There's a way in which could have been done. And second thing is exactly the manner in which this exercise has been, undemocratic manner in which this exercise has been undertaken. There's been no parliamentary debate, there has been no standing committee report, there's been no discussion, there's been no public engagement on this issue at all. And finally, the only parallel that this exercise which I can think of, the Agnipath scheme, which has been announced by the government, lies in the demonetization scheme which was done in 2017. It was done suddenly, it was done with great hope, with great ambitions, and the reasons were suddenly changed, but the results were not that great. Indian economy, because of its inherent strengths, could recover from the blow of demonetization. I am not sure that India's national security landscape, with all its challenges from China, Pakistan, in the Indian Ocean region, and otherwise, can handle a jolt if it comes after this major change. Thank you. If there are any questions, happy to take them.
Hi, I'm Azad Singh Rathore. Do you think that this Agniveer policy or Agnipath policy can lead this whole concept to the PMC's, private military company concept in India?
Sorry, what concept?
PMC's, the private military companies concept.
Yeah, okay. So India has never had private military contractors like the US. This. So United States, when it went into Afghanistan and Iraq, had private military contractors which were employed, largely mostly retired military personnel. And this was very prevalent in Africa as well. One of the South African companies, South African military veteran ran a very big company called Blackwater, which provided, instead of soldiers sending regular soldiers, you ask a private company, a contracted company to provide soldiers. Could it lead to that situation in India? Yeah, that's always a possibility, but that could be far in the future.
It can be used as a threat to democracy later on. What we saw in Capitol Hill, कि जब ट्रम्प जो है वहाँ से बाहर हुए तो उन्होंने अपने समर्थकों को वहाँ भिजवा दिया. अगर उनके पास में कोई पीएमसी होती तो वो ज़्यादा कुछ कर सकते थे. इसी तरह से गोटाबाया भी जब वहाँ से निकल रहे थे, अगर उनके पास पीएमसी होती तो वो कुछ ज़्यादा कर सकते थे. क्या ऐसी पॉसिबिलिटीज भी हमारे यहाँ हो सकती हैं?
दो पॉसिबिलिटी हैं इसके अंदर. एक तो जो आपने बोला कि फौज जिस तरह से आपकी इस तरह की जो आप फौज बनाएंगे वो किस तरह से रिस्पॉन्ड करेगी पॉलिटिकल चेंज के अंदर और पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप के साथ. एक तो वो खतरा है. दूसरा खतरा ये है कि अगर 4 साल के बाद आप 30-40 हज़ार लोगों को हथियार चलाना सिखा के और फौज की तरह ट्रीट करने के बाद अगर आप उनको इस समाज में भेजेंगे जिसमें कि वायलेंस ऑलरेडी इतना ज़्यादा है, वो इस समाज के अंदर क्या करेंगे अगर यहाँ पर नौकरियाँ नहीं हैं और चीज़ों की कमी है. वो दूसरा खतरा सामाजिक खतरा है. एक राजनीतिक खतरा है जो आपने इंगित किया, और एक सामाजिक खतरा है जो कि समाज में यंग ट्रेंड मैन को भेजने की वजह से आएगा.
अगर ये पॉलिसी इसी तरह से चलती है तो अगले 10 साल में हमारे पास में लगभग 2.5 से 3 लाख अग्निवीर हो जाएंगे, जिनकी एवरेज एज लगभग 27 साल के आसपास होगी. क्या उन अग्निवीर्स को जो ऐसी कंट्रीज़ हैं जो हमसे इकोनॉमिकली बहुत बेटर हैं पर उनके पास में ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज नहीं और आर्म फोर्सेज नहीं है, जैसे सऊदी है, दुबई है, जो कि पोरस बॉर्डर भी है और आजकल माइग्रेशन जो है एक बड़ा इशू है, तो उनके वहाँ पर इन अग्निवीर्स को पीएमसी के मार्फत जो है वहाँ यूज़ किया जा सकता है क्या? और अगर वहाँ यूज़ किया जाता है तो हमारे लिए वो कैसे थ्रेट हो सकता है और हमारे लिए उसमें क्या क्या दिक्कतें आ सकती हैं हमारे सामने?
सऊदी अरब और कतार का अभी तक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पाकिस्तान के साथ रहा है, क्योंकि जो आपकी मेजॉरिटी फ़ौज है वो तो मुस्लिम नहीं होगी, और सऊदी अरब और कतार और इस तरह के जो मुल्क हैं वो पूरी तरह से इस्लामिक कंट्री हैं. तो वो अगर लेने की कोशिश भी करेंगे तो वो बांग्लादेश से
कॉन्गो है, मिनरल रिच कंट्रीज हैं जहाँ पर इस तरह के लोगों की ज़रूरत होती है.
हाँ, पर वो स्ट्रैटेजिक इंटरेस्ट से देखना पड़ेगा, और उसके बहुत नेगेटिव कॉनोटेशंस हैं. अगर आप बहुत दूर